Okay, we are live. Hey, everybody. My name's Rob, and 827 days ago, I made my last bet. Now I'm here to talk about gambling, gambling addiction, and addiction recovery, live on YouTube and on Facebook. So, hope everyone's doing well. And if you're here early, do me one favor and leave a like on this video. It'll help get that pushed out to more people. We'll get this live stream rolling. As questions come in, we'll just answer them. We'll hang out for the next however long we end up going here today. So, hope everyone's doing well. And yeah, I'll get into a little bit of my story, I guess, for those that are coming across the page for the first time. I was gambling every day for like 6 years, maybe like 6 to 8 hours a day on average. Started off with daily fantasy sports, but then it was regular sports betting. And then within not too much longer, 2, 3 years later, I was actually spinning slots and it was on my phone. So I would set it to auto spin and I would put it in my pocket when I was at the gym or walking around and just listen to the sound coming in through my headphones. Based on that sound, I was so compulsive with the gambling that I knew how much money I had won or lost on that spin. It honestly was reaching a ridiculous point. So, with that being said, a couple more years went by and I eventually reached the point that I was ready to stop gambling. The last day that I gambled was a 12-hour binge session where I put myself into debt for the next 6 months, working, 70, 80-hour weeks. Wasn't the best of times at all, but started creating content about it like this. And now, 2 years later, 2.5 years later, whatever it might be, here we are. And so, if you're here for the first time, welcome. If you have any questions about gambling, gambling addiction, or addiction recovery, drop them in the chat. We'll be hanging out, whether you're watching live or on the replay. I'll do my best to answer pretty much everything I can. Hello from Tucson, Arizona. Hello, I'm out here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, coming to you live to talk about my addiction and my addiction recovery process. So if there's anything that's been on your mind, feel free to drop it in the chat and let's just get after it. Let's see. February 9th was your last bet. Congratulations, my friend, on that first week. Getting through that first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks is really tough. There's no sugarcoating it, but I'm happy for you that you made that decision, that things are going well so far. Let me know what your recovery plan is. What are you doing to stay away from gambling? Feel free to drop that in the chat. We can talk about it. Basically, for me, I focus on 4 things to stay clean from gambling. Keeping myself busy with other things, other than gambling, obviously. Limiting my access to money. In the beginning, my family helped me by managing my bank account, and I only carried around cash. Then self-excluding from the casinos to make it difficult, and going to support group meetings. Let's see. You're 20, started at 14, messed up life with school, trying to recover now. I understand that, my friend. I started pretty young, but 14 is a little bit younger than I started. I think what we're seeing now as a society is just people starting to gamble younger and younger. And even if you're doing things that you think are video games, it could be gambling, loot boxes, CSGO, that kind of stuff. Well, I am sorry to hear that things have been going poorly for you, my friend, but I'm happy that you're here now. Hope that what we talk about today can be helpful in the journey. Honestly, getting hooked to gambling at a young age is tough because it becomes normal, right? It's like when you don't gamble and then you start doing it, it's like a very different experience. But if you've grown up and it's been happening the entire time and everyone around you seems to be doing it, it's just the new normal. And the way that it's being pushed at us right now, it's just like, if you're not gambling, you're the weird one. So it takes a lot of courage to try to recover now, my friend. And I'm wishing you the best on the journey. Hope that the content can be helpful. Christine, welcome to the chat. I know the feeling of asking people for money under false pretenses and, going and gambling away the money, or even using their money to pay off rent that we should have paid, with our gambling money. So welcome to the chat. Hope that it can be helpful for you. Did I ever have a grand win or a grand jackpot or a huge win? Do I think I would still be gambling if I had? Roberto, I had many, many, many of those. It doesn't matter. All it does is fuel consistent gambling. So a big win, you feel like that's going to set you up for life. Oh, yeah, I got this big win. I can finally stop. I can retire now. But it just makes you more comfortable and it lets you bet bigger. It's only a matter of time until you lose it. So no, I wouldn't still be gambling because I've done that. Been there, done that, and it is not worth going down that path. All wins are future losses. Happy to have you here, my friend. I hope that what I talk about can be helpful. Remember, I'm no doctor. I'm just sharing my experience in recovery from a gambling addiction. And if it works for you, that makes me really happy. Hey from Dallas, hey from Philly. How's it going? Cowboys still stink, even though I'm not gambling on it. Great comment here. Idle hands do the devil's work. Absolutely. When you're sitting around in early recovery and you're bored, what happens is you start to feel sorry for yourself. You start to think of excuses to go back and just have one more bet, have two more bets, be controlled this time. We lie to ourselves. We convince ourselves it'll be different. So staying busy early on, especially, is very, very important. I still struggle with that now. It's like I still have to keep myself busy. I still am not too comfortable in boredom, in doing nothing, but I'll take the problems that I have now over the problems I used to any day. From ground zero over in Vegas. Michelle, welcome to the chat. I hope that what we talk about here can be helpful stuff. Watch the video. The guy said it's easy to stop, but it's harder to stay stopped. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily easy to do either. Um, I don't know what the hell that guy was maybe talking about, but I guess if you can take it this way, it's like it's easy to say I'm done. It's harder to follow through with it. Absolutely. But getting yourself into a recovery plan, sticking to it and working it on a regular basis is really important. And my plan was 4 things for those that have joined a little bit later. And I'm sure we're going to touch on it many times over the next hour. Finding alternative things to do with my time, limiting my access to money that would tempt me by having someone manage my bank account. I carried cash, self-excluding from the casinos to make it more difficult, and going to support group meetings. Hi, Shreya. How you doing? Welcome to the chat. If your last bet genuinely was 4 minutes ago and you are trying to stop, which I don't know if you are, I don't know if like this is something that you've tried before or if you're just trolling, but if you are trying to stop, you're in the right place. If you're trolling, you're in the right place because eventually we're here for you. But no matter when your last bet was, you can stop, you can leave it behind, and we can move forward and live a good life. Oh, Mackenzie, much love, my friend. Thank you for being here. Thank you for saying that. When people say that my videos made an impact, it means a lot to me. But what I always like to just say is like, you made the impact. Maybe the video helped you to motivate yourself to make the impact, but I didn't do it for you. So be proud of yourself. I'm really happy to hear that. Yeah, gambling has been deemed to be as addictive as some drugs that are out there, specifically like heroin and other opiates. Yes, it's absolutely true. If your brother is telling you to lower your bet instead of quitting, there could be a couple reasons for that. One is that he wants you to keep gambling because it justifies him keeping gambling. So if it's something you do together, he doesn't want to lose you. Could be a sign of a problem for him. But also, like people just don't treat gambling addiction as a real thing. So they don't understand that in the brain of a gambling addict, it doesn't matter if you lower your bets, it's always going to end the same. Tell your brother that you want to stop gambling and tell him to fuck off, basically. I don't know. Like, this is a tough one, right? You don't want to make enemies, you don't want to have people be upset with you, but if you tell people the truth and they tell you to keep going, they're not looking out for your best interests. So just have an honest conversation about it, my friend. Wishing you well. Welcome, my friend. Welcome, my friend. 3 months ago, you had a win, but you went broke again. That's the unfortunate reality, right? It's like all wins turn into future losses. That's what I like to repeat here on the channel. People will say like, oh, just keep going till you get your big win. Well, we've had big wins, and then something like this will happen. So I'm happy that you're here, my friend. I hope that things are going okay. And I've been out to Amsterdam. I liked Amsterdam. So welcome to the chat. I noticed that when I tell people I no longer gamble, I get a lot of responses of indifference or even pushback. Do you get that from people? Pat, to an extent, it's like with what I do, this is like my job. So it's kind of expected at this point when I talk to people, especially those that I know. But early on, it was like I didn't have that same experience. I just kind of said like, "Hey, I don't want to gamble anymore," and people were like, "Okay, cool." The indifference or the pushback could be the fact that people aren't taking it seriously. They don't recognize that it's a real addiction. So if you're honest with people and they still tell you to keep going back, they still kind of aren't giving you the credit you deserve for trying to stop, they might not be your people. They might be bad friends. But realistically, people just don't see it like that yet, which is why we're making content like this. Guys, I'm going to keep answering questions, but do me one favor. If you're here watching, especially on YouTube, I want you to leave a like on this video. If you're on Facebook, come on over to YouTube because I make content here aimed at helping you to avoid making the same mistakes with your life that I made with mine. And the number one thing that you can do is like and subscribe to this channel. That's really all that I need from you. So keep the questions rolling in. We'll keep touching on them. Do the urges to gamble for you start going away the longer you stop? Yes, I think it's like you just kind of get used to the new reality. Your brain begins to heal itself, the dopamine levels balance back out, and you crave gambling less naturally as you're staying away from it. So yeah, it does get better. You've been telling your online group about my channel. Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate that. We're trying to make content that attracts a wide audience, but at its core, at the very core of this channel, it's aimed at helping people not go down the same path that I did. So if it's something that's helpful to your meeting, please continue to share it. I really hope that it does make an impact. Are there groups online? Yes. Gamblersanonymous.com or .org rather would have it. Gamblersinrecovery.com has free meetings 24/7 all around the world in numerous languages. Gamblersinrecovery.com. How did others become professional gamblers and make money on it if no one wins? Very easy answer. They're lying to you and selling you a product. If the professional gambler also sells a course on how you can do it too, you should ask yourself this question. Why would someone go and do all this work when they could just make a bet and get rich? It's because you're being misled. You are the product in this case. Professional gamblers are just great marketers. And that's the truth. 57 years old is not too late to stop gambling. I saw you make this comment. I just went through on my YouTube channel earlier and I responded to a bunch of comments on a bunch of videos. And I saw your comment, Dino. The truth is, right, you're going to keep living, hopefully. You're going to keep living. And whether it's another 20 years, 40 years, 50 years, there's time in front of you. Why continue to do things that are going to make life worse just because you've done it for so long? I don't think there's any age in which you can't get better. That's my take. Never too late. Marks, thank you for the love. If you're in search of content, I'd like to share my story. Please, please. For anyone that wants to share their story of gambling addiction, email me at ROBODAAT, robodat@gmail.com. Tell me a little bit about your story. I want to have more podcasts. We're trying to get to 100 recordings this year. I believe we're at 35 episodes posted, and we've recorded 43. So there's still lots of recordings to do. I'd love to hear your story. Please reach out. And thank you for the donation, my friend. Really appreciate that. Let's see. Let's not spam the chat, please, because it's just annoying. Let's see. I question myself why I'm only addicted to slot machines and no other games, not even scratch tickets, not tables, just not slot machines, because that's the game that you enjoy the most. This is a big problem, I think, in the mind of a problem gambler. We like to separate the games out, even though it's the same thing happening in our brain. So the reason that you're hooked to slot machines is because that is the game that you enjoy the most. That is it. There's no like magical reason why you can play slots, but not this, or you can play this, but not slots. It's just that you get more enjoyment out of it because you like it more. It's only a matter of time. So if you were to quit slot machines and only play roulette, you'd eventually develop a roulette problem. Then you'd develop a blackjack problem. It's just a matter of time. So I used to tell myself the same thing. It's why I get kind of fired up about it, is because I used to say that with sports betting. I was like, sports betting's different. The casino game's like, oh, I know I'm hooked to that, but sports, I'm fine. And in reality, it was a lie I was telling myself to keep gambling. It was all because I enjoyed it the most. Okay. How come when I lose a big amount and get in big trouble, promise myself to never play again, but after a time I find myself playing again, forget the disaster? As a like medical phenomenon, I don't really remember the answer to this. But I can tell you from experience, right? If I wanted to keep gambling because I'm enjoying it, I'm going to block out the negative experiences, remember the positive ones as motivation to go back. Because if you're remembering the negative experiences, it would be motivation not to go back. But if you really want to gamble, you're going to remember the positive things. So that's exactly why. It's because you want to keep gambling. So in recovery, it's important to remember the negative experiences. It's one of the benefits of me making this content, is that saying like, hey, this, and this happened to me because of my gambling. It's a reminder of why I need to stay away from it. Now, I see. So you're being blamed for someone else's addiction. There's not much that you can really do about that, my friend. I'm sorry that you're in that position. If someone wants to keep gambling, they will find many excuses to do it. And one of them is blaming other people instead of taking accountability. Something that I did very, very often. Yes, Mackenzie, I made a video about this last week. Called the most dangerous casino game you've never heard of. If you're on YouTube, you can check it out. It's here on the channel. And if you're here, do me a favor and leave a like on this video. It'll get it pushed out to more people. We're going to be gone for another 45 minutes or so here. So if you have questions about gambling, gambling addiction, addiction recovery, drop them in the chat. Leave a like on the video. And I'm going to take a sip of water before I answer anymore. All right. I'm stuck in a cycle of being gambling free for 2 weeks. Then I get paid and immediately relapse and lose it all. I don't have anyone in my life that can manage my finances, feel so alone and depressed. All right. Well, let's break it down in a couple pieces here. The reason that you're doing that for 2 weeks is simply because you're out of money, it seems. So it's really easy to stop gambling when you don't have access to the money. As you mentioned in the next part, you don't have any family members that can help control your finances. What country do you live in? Because you might be able to do that by working with your bank to get bank transaction blockers. If you live in the United States, you can go to a support group meeting, get a sponsor, and that sponsor can become your financial accountability. But it seems like you're probably trying to do this on your own, completely isolated, and then blaming the fact that you don't have the family or anyone in your life to manage the finances to go back. And I understand it. And when I say these things, right, I don't want you to think that I'm picking on you. I'm being honest because I did the same things, right? Oh, I don't have this, so I have to keep gambling. I'm behind financially, so I have to keep making bets. And it's this cycle of lying to yourself to keep gambling. Are you lying to yourself by saying you don't have anyone to support you with the finances to keep going instead of going out and finding a solution? No. Oh, this a group of goofballs. I don't even want to dive into it. It's so stupid, Roberto. I know what you're trying to do. It's just the dumbest thing. When people try to plug their own like slot channels and it's just so stupid. Like I get that there's not a ton of morals when it comes to gamblers online trying to sell their own products about scamming people into gambling, but one of the worst is like when you go onto a chat about problem gambling, about gambling addiction, and try to sell your shitty product or push your shitty page. It's just so stupid. All right. Does anyone get anxious and in a bad mood when you stop gambling for a few days? Yes, it can be an emotional form of withdrawal where you're not getting your stimulation anymore, right? You're used to these high levels of thrill, and now all of a sudden it's gone. You feel bored, you feel lonely, isolated. So gambling is a coping mechanism for a lot of people. And once you pull it away, you need something else to fill your time with. And if you're not doing that, you're going to feel like that. So it's a pretty natural reaction, I think, Teresa, unfortunately. But the 4 things that you can do to try to live a better life without gambling are finding alternative things to do to plug into your time so that you're not feeling this boredom or this anxiety. Then limiting your access to money by having a family member manage the account or by having your bank put in bank transaction blockers or getting an accountability buddy via a support group meeting, which step 3 is to go to support group meetings. The 4th is to self-exclude to make it more difficult to gamble. Why do people always lose in gambling? All the games are statistically designed for you to lose in the long run. Do I believe that gambling addiction is curable, or do you believe it can only be arrested? In that case, how do you arrest it in the best possible way, in your opinion? So it's the 4 things that I just touched on to arrest it. But yes, of course, someone that is addicted to gambling will never be able to gamble normally. So technically, by definition, there's no cure to the addiction. However, if you're not gambling, life is good. And so it's arresting it. But I don't love the phrasing of it, to be honest. It just sounds like very disheartening for someone that's looking to get help. When you find out like, oh, there's no cure, why should I even try to stop? Right? Like that's the natural reaction that I'd expect. So rather than putting it that way, I say you can get better. You just can't gamble normally again. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. I do my best to come on here, and sometimes we get good comments, sometimes we get bad comments. But at the end of the day, it's all about trying to get people help and have them avoid making the same mistakes with their life that I made with mine. So if you're enjoying the content here, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. We're trying to grow it, of course, as big as possible to get this message out to more people that gambling addiction is real, but help is out there if you are struggling. We want to prevent people from going down the same path. Can someone overcome gambling on their own? Probably. I didn't. I think it's kind of an unnecessary challenge to put upon yourself because a lot of times rather than, well, let's see how I can phrase this. Yes, but if you're telling yourself you have to do it alone, it's probably just planting a seed for you to go back and relapse because you're not staying accountable to anyone else. You're giving yourself an excuse later on when it's only your willpower, which I think is the problem. Is it possible? Sure. Is it ideal or optimal? Definitely not. Wish I was addicted to something else than slot machines when the desire of playing to get on my head lost control, self-excluded from the casinos. Well, I mean, I wish I wasn't addicted to gambling too, but here we are. That's not positive thinking, though. There's no benefit to thinking that. So rather than thinking it like that, think of it as, hey, I have this problem. I know I just need to not go on slot machines and then life will be good again, not go to the casino and life will be good again. So let's figure out how we can get better and move forward. And of course, we're talking about that here today. Thank you for the love, my friend. It's not easy at all. And what's one thing that helped me totally stop? I mean, it's the four things. It can't be just one thing. If you're looking for one thing, there's no magic pill, there's no magic cure. It just doesn't work that way, unfortunately. But the four things, once again, finding things to do with your time, finding a support group meeting, self excluding from the casinos to make it more difficult, and putting in some kind of financial blocks, whether it's someone managing your bank account, a bank transaction blocker, a TrueLink card to block certain transactions. Get yourself in a situation where you cannot cave to the temptations. And those are the four things together. How to avoid it? Mac, I don't think that's a positive way of thinking about it. With the fact that gambling is everywhere, with it's being pushed and marketed everywhere, it's available everywhere. I don't think that avoiding it works at all, actually. I think rather than avoiding it, it's being prepared for the times that you'll have temptations with a plan ahead of time. And so what I mean is like, all right, say like you're feeling really bored and you're wanting to gamble really bad, but then you log into your computer and you're blocked from the website. Okay, I'm going to go to this website instead. Okay, now you're on this website. So you go to put in your bank account number and then you go, oh, wait, I don't have access to that bank account. I only carry cash. Oh, let me call my support group meeting. And that's how you get better. It's not avoiding it, it's being ready ahead of time for when you have urges to gamble. And then gradually over time, those urges will diminish and life will get easier. But you have to be prepared. Poker is gambling, gambling, gambling. Gambling is any type of situation where you're betting money. It's gambling. We've had so many people come on here and one tell me that it's not gambling because it's poker and it's skill. And then I've had professional poker players come on here and tell me it's gambling. So it's very, very obviously gambling. But with bowling, pool, and dart tournaments, if you're not playing for money, it just sounds fun. So be honest with yourself about it. They are promoting gaming in Texas as an entertainment for family. Yeah, it's just there's no regulating body on the messaging that a casino, gaming, or gambling company can put out. So what I mean by that is like the Federal Trade Commission will not allow stock market accounts, or rather, so let's say Robinhood, right? Let's use Robinhood as an example. Robinhood cannot mislead their consumers. They're not allowed. And at the end of their commercial, it has to have this giant disclaimer that you could lose your investment if you come on this platform. The gambling commercials aren't regulated by anyone. So they can say whatever they want, like, come on and get that winning feeling. Come on in here and be the next big shit. And then at the end of it, oh, call us if you have a problem, loser. Like they don't have to say anything that they don't want to. And so it's being promoted as entertainment for family. Of course, they're going to promote it as the next Disney World because they can. And it'll convince people to go and do it. There's no repercussions for that, even though it's very clearly a bad thing. But whatever. I got this one last week. If I had a relapse, I'd admit it, but I'd probably stop making content for a while. I've just seen the negatives that it can have when someone's trapped in a cycle of trying to like, not appeal, but like satisfy the conditions of other people and like maintain a public image about it. If I did, I'd say, here's what happened, here's what I'm going to do about it. But then I'd probably back up for a little bit because trying to maintain that image would add more stress and it would probably make the situation a lot worse in terms of guilt. But why even think about it? We're not heading that direction anyway. I was addicted to this as well, or I guess I am. I am addicted to this as well, but I'm in recovery, 827 days. But the stock market was always a tough one for me because it doesn't necessarily have to be gambling, though the way I was doing it, it was. So the way that I draw the line between it now, buying and holding an asset for the long term will fall into the category of investing. Trying to make a quick profit maybe day trading, options trading, leverage trading, crypto leverage trading. All that's gambling. But if you're going to buy and hold an asset for 10 years and you believe in the company, you've done research, or you're buying an ETF, come on, that's investing. But it's really easy to tell the difference between the two if you try to tell the difference between the two. But guys, do me a favor. We're doing well so far, but if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But the favor that I need from you is that if you're enjoying what we're talking about here today, leave a like on this video. It'll help get it pushed out to more people. Live streams love likes. Don't know what it is, but it helps get more people into the chat. We'll get more questions rolling in. We'll just keep this snowballing until the top of the hour. So hope everyone's doing well. And if you're watching this on the live replay, make sure you hit that subscribe button, especially over on YouTube, because we're trying to grow this account to help as many people as possible. And that's the number one way you can support. Let's see. Let's see. 2 years of this, don't know how to stop. Always say you want to stop, but it's hard, from the Philippines. The 4 things that you need to do to stop gambling are: find other things to do with your time. Limit access to money that will tempt you by having someone manage your bank account, or at least see your bank account numbers. Third is self-excluding from the casinos, limiting your access to gambling, making it more difficult. And fourth is going to support group meetings such as Smart Recovery, Gamblers Anonymous. These are types of support groups. These 4 things together will make a massive difference, and it's what I've done to stay clean for the last 827 days. For some people, Breaker, sure. The casinos make approximately 75% of their money from people who aren't regular casual gamblers. That comes from the gambling addicts. I would say that the studies show that between 2 and 7% of people in the United States have a gambling problem of some nature. These are self-reported numbers, so I'm imagining that we can basically double them. And I'd go up and say that about 12 to 15% of people in the United States probably have a gambling addiction at this point, and it's going to continue to grow. Some people might not get addicted to it, sure. But I think that the way that it's being pushed and marketed and reinforced at this point is creating an epidemic of addiction in the country. So to the people that can gamble normally and aren't lying to themselves about it, congrats. Enjoy your 1 bet per year. For me, it would never happen. I'm someone that got addicted to gambling, so I craved the dopamine from it. And it wasn't about winning and losing. It was about getting a consistent thrill and staying in action. Wins just meant that I could keep gambling. Losses meant that I could keep gambling because I had to go and get it back. But it just created negatives in my life. So to answer your question, cool for you or for someone like that, not for me, and not for many of the people that are watching this video. Yes, I've gotten this question before, Daryl, and I think it's actually a good one. Is gambling a problem if I can afford it? It certainly can be, because gambling is not just a financial problem. It causes all types of problems in your life if you let a gambling addiction occur, which means that you're losing sleep about it. You're losing time from work or school. You're losing the trust of your family. You're hiding from people. It's mentally consuming you. You are experiencing negatives besides the financial negatives. It's just that most people with a gambling addiction will also experience financial negatives. That's what usually motivates a lot of the negatives in their life. But it can be a problem even if you can afford it. Yes. How do you deal with enablers, and what makes someone want to enable? I don't know what makes someone want to enable, nor do I really want to dive into that topic. But how do you deal with them? You tell them, hey, I'm someone who can't gamble normally, and I'm trying to stop gambling. If they keep pushing you for it, no matter who they are, they might not be your real friend. They might not be a good person to be with. You got to lay it all out there, be honest with people. And if they keep pushing you on it, it's just not a good relationship. But in that case, it might be worth talking to like a therapist or a professional about it, because, I only can speak from my own experience. I didn't really have any enablers once I told people about my problem. Let's see. And again, if you have any questions about gambling, gambling addiction, or addiction recovery, feel free to drop them in the chat. Let's see. Let's hide current comments. Okay. My mindset went from gambling to get rich quick to saving and investing to build long-term wealth. I now own a home and have revenues in the bank and investments, and life is much easier now. I think that gambling has officially become the new get rich quick scheme. I feel like that's probably pretty fair to say in the United States, at least. And all of them are called schemes for a reason. I thought this too. I was like, I'm going to get rich from gambling, and I now have more money than I ever have when I was gambling, and all it really took was not wasting it. But it's a slower process and it's a frustrating process at times, but I know the feeling. How much did I go into debt and how did I manage to stay in control when your mind betrays you? So I'm not sure if this was actually your question or not, but I'm going to take it as how much money did I lose gambling? And I'm not going to give you a real answer. And there's a reason why. If you're watching this video, there's a decent chance that you have a gambling addiction. Maybe you don't, but maybe you do. And if you do, and I say an amount of money that's more than what you lost, this is exactly what you're going to say in your head. Oh, Rob's a gambling addict and he lost more than me, which means that I'm not a gambling addict. I'm okay. I can keep going until I lose that much. Then I have to stop. So rather than telling you how much money I lost, I tell you that I went into debt 6 times over the course of 6 years, that I was working a second job to pay it off. If that doesn't explain it, you likely didn't need to be here anyway. But realistically, I just hate giving people a reason to keep gambling because it's always relative to the amount of money you have. Losing $1 million and losing $100, if you end up with zero, you're in the same situation either way. 2 months out of gambling, congratulations. And let's see, tell the truth the rest of your life. That sounds like an amazing proposition, and I wish you well on the journey. I was like a compulsive liar by the time I finished gambling. I was lying about stupid stuff. I was like, if I was going to the gym, I'd say I was going to the park. Like it didn't make any sense. I was just lying and lying and lying over and over. But congratulations on your time clean, my friend, and I'm wishing you well going forward. Continue to shout out the number of days that you've been clean if you're in the chat. I really appreciate hearing it. It keeps me motivated to keep making this content, to keep talking about it. And if I can do anything to help you, please ask that question. Mhm. Oh, yes. Very genius minimum bet strategy by my friend here, Renaissance. Renaissance is now claiming that if you just bet the minimums, you're going to get rich gambling. Very good, Renaissance. Thank you very much. The truth is, if you bet smaller amounts, you're just going to lose your money slower. That's about it. Let's see. We got the ambulance coming by again, or the cops. Maybe they're after me. Maybe Renaissance just called the cops on me for calling them out all live on stream, but we'll see how it goes. So apologies for the sound if it's coming through. And let's see. Does GA help? It helped me. I go to a meeting every Tuesday night, and I've been doing so since February 8th of 2022. It's been really important for me to have a support group of people to talk to. People have asked me before, like, did the 12 steps do it for me? And for me, not really. I mean, I worked through them. I was like very tedious with them the first couple of months that I entered recovery. But what really helped me was just having a support group to talk to. You can put your faith into the 12 steps. Maybe that's what does it for you. But for me, it was more about just being around people that understood what was going on in my head. Do I believe that people online who promote themselves as banned from casinos because they won too much? Do you believe they're bullshit artists or at least aren't telling the whole story? 100%, Pat. I mean, we can't blanket statement and say that everyone's bullshitting completely, but we know that we're not getting the full story no matter where you are. You guys aren't getting the full story when I'm talking on here. I'm doing my best to be open and honest, right? But you're only getting a fraction of the truth because we're making content that's finite. There's only a certain amount of time we have to talk to each other here. So when people are putting stuff out online, especially if they're selling something, they're telling a partial truth and they're using it to profit. That's almost without failure. So yes, I believe that almost every single person online that sells anything related to gambling, and I'd actually go as far as saying all of them, are scamming in some kind of way, or maybe are oblivious to the fact that they're scamming, but they actually are. Seems like you just kind of want me to gamble, is what I'm getting here. Are you looking for justification for yourself? Maybe you're going through a hard time right now. Let me know in the chat. But I don't understand the point, to be honest. What made me stop? I had this insane thought during a gambling binge. So it was a 12-hour gambling binge, and I was taking cash advances from an ATM at the casino, and I had a giant wad of money, and I was walking around. It was in my pocket. I didn't have a rubber band or a money clip or anything like that. And about 8 hours in, I went to the bathroom and I tried to reach in for my phone, and some money fell out when I pulled my phone out. And I had this thought. I was like, "Oh no, I probably dropped money somewhere in this casino. Like, oh my God, what am I going to do?" And then I started laughing because I was like, "Oh, well, if I did drop the money, then someone will pick it up and have a good day with it. If I didn't, I'm just going to lose it when I go back out there anyway and go back and gamble more." So I had this thought finally of like, what is even the point? But it took 6 years of gambling for like 6 to 8 hours a day before I reached that point. Highs and lows and just terrible. So yeah, that's what made me quit gambling. If you were a successful gambler, would you quit? I don't know a lot of people that are winning money and then say they're going to stop doing something. But the truth is, there's no such thing as a successful gambler. So it's only a matter of time until you start to lose. So to all the successful gamblers in the chat, just go ahead and bookmark this page for 3 weeks from now when things go to shit. And I'll be here making content, posting stuff as I've been for years now. Going to continue to do it. Do you go to a therapist regularly or only support group meetings? Chris, in the beginning of my recovery, I was doing both on a pretty regular basis. At this point, I try to get into my support group meeting when I can. In my situation, I don't want to make an excuse, right? I don't want to say I don't need meetings because I think I still do. It's just that every day I'm making content and I'm working very hard on these platforms. And it feels like I'm consistently talking about the things that I would talk about at a meeting. So I do my best to get in there nonetheless. But when I go, it does feel like I'm just recording another video to a certain extent. But at this point now, I'm not doing too much more than the minimums. Is YouTube your job now? I mean, that's the dream, David. It's not really currently. It doesn't make enough money from ad revenue and I don't sell any products. So it's not technically my full-time job. But what it has given me is proof of concept. And now I'm able to work with some marketing firms and I create content for their pages. And that's my full-time job. I essentially run a marketing firm now. But YouTube has been the driving factor of the one thing that I really want to just hit out of the park is the YouTube channel. And it's easier said than done. I'll tell you that. It's a frustratingly slow platform when it comes to growth. Even though the numbers might look pretty decent now at 18,000, I think 200 something. It's been like 20 people a day joining the community, which I'm grateful for. I think TikTok ruined things for me when I had a growth spurt of 10 to 50,000 in 2 days or 3 days or whatever it was. That set my expectations such that the YouTube is moving too slow. But the goal is to keep it going, and I hope we just keep adding to this community, keep growing it. What were your biggest highs and vice versa? I mean, the highs were all artificial. There were times that I would win in dramatic fashion and I would feel like I was so smart or at the top of the world. And then I would have all this money and I'd want to bet bigger. I never wanted to spend it on anything. And then the lows obviously were the moments after that when the losses would eventually roll in. Because believe it or not, all wins are future losses. And those highs really just lead to bigger lows. In fact, if you look at a chart of the dopamine that gets released in your brain as a gambler, you get this big swing. But then when you come back down, you don't just go back down to a baseline level of happiness. You crash through it. So your life, I'll go this way. Your life looks like this. Downward spiral. And it's really just a shell of the life you deserve to live. But that's what it was. Alex, great point here. All right. Bets on tennis. I did that too. There's always a tennis match on, so I get that. But even when you win, you're pissed that you didn't bet more money. There's no satisfaction to it. The satisfaction is so brief. You feel like, oh, I'll get this big win. I'll be the man. Everything will be perfect. Everything's going to be awesome. And then you get it and you're like, okay, I need to bet again. It's like that. But the losses stick with you for weeks. And you're desperately chasing to try to get them back. And it creates a cycle of just generally suffering. But yeah, even when you're winning, you're not really winning. It's just a matter of time until you end up losing. When can you know that you don't need to go to GA meetings? The people that are in GA meetings will tell you never. You'll always need them. For me, I still think that you need some type of centering, some type of meeting on a regular basis, but does it mean you have to go to a GA meeting to accomplish that? I don't necessarily think so anymore. But you do need to maintain a regular schedule in your recovery of things to remind you of why you're trying to stay clean. So that's how I would kind of recommend, or that's how I would answer that question. Winning when we gamble is exactly the same as a very high interest short-term loan, which will be repaid very quickly at an insane rate. Or you default on it and you have to get another loan to pay that loan, and another loan, and another loan. But great point. It's that wins are just loans against your future losses. And it's just a matter of time until we give it back. So guys, if you're here in the chat right now, do me a favor, guys and girls, my apologies. Hit that subscribe button if you're on YouTube. We're trying to grow this platform to be as large as it can possibly be. And the number one thing that you can do right now to support is just leave a like on the video. If you're enjoying what we're talking about, if you're hating what we're talking about, just leave a like. It all accomplishes the same goal, gets more people in here. We'll get these questions rolling through for the next 20 minutes or so. Let's see. After losing so much money and after being almost debt-free, how do I actually stop? I've stopped before for a month here and there, but only when I was out of money. I always end up going back. So the 4 things username that I did, great username by the way, to stay clean from gambling and stick to it, were finding other things to do with my time, consistently keeping myself on the move and busy. Then it was limiting my access to money that would tempt me. Having my family control my bank account was my solution, and I only carried cash because I was an online gambler. Third is self-excluding from casinos online, making it as difficult as possible to access the gambling. And fourth is going to support group meetings. It's these things that will have you prepared ahead of time for when you get that inevitable urge to go and gamble. Let's see. Scariest thing is losing value for money. Yeah, absolutely. I think that basically all casino games, including the ones in person, are designed to decouple you from the value of your money. There's a reason you use poker chips instead of dollars. There's a reason there's credit lines instead of just telling you what the hell you're betting. There's a reason why online feels like a video game rather than real money. And it's because when you forget about the value of money, you're more willing to part with it. So I think we'd see a lot less gambling losses if people were seeing their dollar go every single time. Actually, if they just lit it on fire every single time, I think that would solve a lot of problems because that's basically what you're doing. Any books I recommend? The book that helped me in the beginning a lot was Atomic Habits by James Clear. There's a couple books where people tell their gambling stories, but not a lot of like how-to books on recovery. I think Alan Carr's Way to Quit Gambling was one that's been recommended a bunch. I never read it, but just keeping yourself busy, finding books that build you up rather than tear you down. Why is gambling not illegal like other addictions? I mean, technically other addictions aren't illegal anyway. Like you can buy alcohol, you can buy cigarettes, you can buy some drugs, but the real reason that it's pushed like no other addiction, marketed like no other addiction, is because the government is making an insane amount of money from it. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue from having it legalized, and no one's ever factoring in the societal costs that come with that. It was estimated that in 2023, it was $14 billion was the national social cost of gambling addiction. But, that pales in comparison to what they're reaping in. So basically, the government is profiting off of the pain of its own citizens. And that's why it's legal. Let's see. What are you doing? Let's see. Keep the questions rolling. I'm going to do my best to touch on as many as I can. You stop using online payments in order to stop from online gambling. That's exactly what I did. I started carrying cash, so that worked for me. Bro, everything in this world costs money. No one is forgetting about it when they go to a casino. I think that's entirely incorrect, which means that you don't have a gambling addiction or you're in denial about it, maybe. When I went to a casino, I would completely forget about the value of money because it just became game tokens for me. It became fuel to continue my addiction. So if you don't relate to that, good for you, but probably in the wrong place. Yeah, definitely. Not all recovery looks the same. We can lay out what works for us and we can share it with other people, but you might take bits and pieces of what works for you and then apply it in your own way. Crypto casinos are the crack cocaine of gambling. No safety nets, no checks, no KYC. The UK is trying to figure out how to ban them. The UK is probably just trying to figure that out so they can make the tax revenue, in fairness. But yeah, I mean, slot machines used to be called the crack cocaine of gambling. Now it's these online machines or these online sites where you're playing games like Crash, like Mines, these kinds of games. Yeah, they're highly addictive. There's no KYC on most of them, which means that kids are signing up and playing with them. Creates a really bad situation. Yeah, it all comes down to money, honestly. Would promos free play make you go into relapse? I'm imagining this says yes. Basically, those are just, you can think of them as bait on the end of a fishing hook. They're not being given out because the casino thinks you're awesome. They're being given out to get you to come back in and then eventually bet your own money. And also, a lot of those like free play promotions, especially in the United States, are considered tax write-offs for the casinos. So when you see like those marketing things where it says bet $5, win 200, They get to write off the $200. Then they get to get it back from you in your own money later on. Uh, it's like a system where the government is enabling casinos to make billions and billions of dollars so that they can get their cut. When you lose years off your life, it's tough to stop because you start feeling like a big win can make up for all the lost time and wasted time. I get this. It's called the sunk cost fallacy. You spent so much time on something that you feel like you have to keep going until you win. The problem is that with something like gambling, you're playing a zero sum game. You're playing a game where for them to win, you have to lose. And so all the games are statistically designed for you to keep losing. So while you're chasing after this money that you've lost, you're actually just putting more money at risk that now you're statistically supposed to lose. And even if you get that big win, it's just going to feel like it's not big enough and you're going to keep going. So one thing that I'd always tell myself is like, oh, I'll stop after I get this win or after I hit this bet. And then I'd hit it and then I'd keep going. And the reason that I kept going is because saying I'll stop after this was just a way of getting to the next bet. It was a way of justifying the next bet. That's called the sunk costs because you're sinking. I'm trying to think of a good analogy that I couldn't, but it's not worth thinking this way. You're chasing after your old money with new money that you don't need to risk. Life can be good if you leave it behind, but I understand the issues involved in getting through that. Does it get easier? It's been 4 days and I feel sad and depressed. Sandra, of course you feel sad and depressed. You've taken something away that you love to do, and now you are feeling bored, obviously. It's a natural feeling, and it's something that you're going to have to push through. But what I recommend doing is getting busy, finding things to do with your time, because this feeling will begin to subside as your brain begins to reset its dopamine levels and heal itself. But it takes weeks, months, sometimes years. And that boredom is natural because you're taking away what this high thrill was and replacing it with life. Doesn't feel great. Not a lot of inspiring things that I can tell you, but it does get easier as time goes on. I promise you that. So just keep yourself busy for the time being and then focus on these other three things. It's finding alternatives for your time, as mentioned, limiting your access to money that would tempt you to gamble by having someone have oversight of your bank account or having a bank block transactions to certain places that you've gambled. Third is self-excluding from the casinos to make it more difficult to gamble. And fourth is going to support group meetings. You don't want to stop because you feel stupid for losing so much. I understand this. It becomes a sense of competition. Like, I can't admit defeat. I can't say that they've defeated me, that I've lost. And it's just another excuse to keep going. So as these bad feelings roll in, embrace them, because if you're acting on everything that you think, you're going to end up going back to gambling. You don't want to feel like a loser. You don't want to feel like you've been defeated by this entity. But the games were always designed for that to happen. And now, instead of feeling like a loser, feel smart because you've realized it. You've realized the truth that gambling is not profitable. Yep, as far as I know, I did the 5-year, whatever the longest one was. So I should be excluded from every casino I've ever played at, as far as I know. I don't get any letters from them, and it would be pretty bad if I did because it would end up on my TikTok account. They'd get roasted. I think that all gambling is equally bad. People are drawn towards games that they get the most enjoyment from, and the ones that cause the most damage are often the fastest ones. So it's games like Crash, but also like slot machines, that the bets are happening quickly. It's not that they're necessarily more addictive, it's that they are happening faster, and the frequency creates more addiction. There's something I can do mentally to make myself stop once and for all. I've tried restrictions, but I always end up giving in and finding a workaround. I keep thinking I'll win it back and quit. The 4 things that I've laid out a couple of times are the things that you really need to be doing if you want to follow in my footsteps and use my plan of recovery. The truth is there's no one-stop shop, right? There's not one magic pill that you can take that's going to fix it. But this thought of trying to win it all back and then quit is just an excuse you're telling yourself to justify continuing. You're saying, if I win it all back, then I'll be happy. But what happened the last time you told yourself that? And you had a win. Did you quit? There were plenty of times, and especially early on in the gambling, where I broke even. Then I kept going for years. So be honest with yourself. Would you actually quit if you did have that big win? Is online gambling more dangerous when it comes to addiction than gambling in land-based casinos? It simply comes down to a frequency issue, in my opinion. So if you lived in a land-based casino, you would find it to be as addictive as online. It's not necessarily that the online is any different. It's just that it's more accessible, so you can do it more often. And where you can do it more often, you can do it at a higher frequency. Where you do it at a higher frequency, you develop an addiction faster. So because of the accessibility of online gambling, that's what's making it the most addictive. But if you lived in a casino, you'd find it the same. Is my opinion. Let's see. And again, if you have any questions, please let me know in the chat. I'm doing my best for the next 10 minutes to touch on as many as I can. And please, again, smash that subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube and you're not yet subscribed to the channel. Let's see. If you got an email now from an online casino that you can play $200 for free without depositing, would you play it? I would ignore it because it's a trap. You have to think of them as bait on the end of a hook. In fact, I've gotten different kinds of emails now based on what I do for my job. Now I get emails that say, if I just lie to you guys and say that I relapsed, they'll give me 20 grand to go and spin slot machines and stream it. So I get much different offers now, and they're all traps. They're all full of shit. There is no way for you to profit in the long term. Gambling, any kind of promotion like this, is just built for you to get sucked back in and eventually lose your money. Let's see. Self-excluded in the UK, congratulations, but you found European sites that still accept you. They use different payments to the gambling sites, so my bank blocks don't work. In that situation, Ed, one thing that you can do is install something like Gamban and tell them about the specific sites if they're not listed on their exclusion list to make it more difficult to access. But the truth, the hard truth, Ed, you're always going to be able to gamble. Always. No matter what you do, no matter what transaction blocks you put in place, you're always going to be able to do it. So in addition to making it more difficult, you have to truly want to quit. And that's a hard truth that's really difficult to accept. But no matter what I tell you here today, if you want to gamble, you're going to figure out a way. If you lost all your money creating options, any advice? Ask the brokerages that you're using to close your accounts, install Gamban to block those brokerages so that you don't have access to them anymore, and then follow the 4 steps that I've been talking about all stream. Finding other things to do with your time, limiting your access to money that'll tempt you, excluding from the casinos or the stock brokerage accounts, as we just mentioned, and going to support group meetings for gambling addiction. Do I feel technology has made gambling worse? Not necessarily worse, but more accessible, and thus, as a result, worse, I guess. So it's increased frequency of play. That's what I think a lot of the innovation has been in gambling technology, has just been making games faster, making bet limits higher, making the games happen more exciting. Like, it's just increasing the speed and frequency of play. And so has technology made it worse? Yes. Yes, it has. I don't really agree with this, Michelle. I just think it's like a reason to give people under 2 years a reason to go back to gambling. I think that a lot of times what you'll find is people don't feel comfortable in their recovery necessarily until a couple years in, or completely comfortable. But if we're telling people that it doesn't count until you hit 2 years, we're just giving them a reason to relapse, unfortunately. So I can't agree with that statement. I think that if anyone's leaving gambling in the past and they're getting some time under their belt, something to celebrate, something that they should be moving forward with and be proud of. But I understand exactly, what you're getting at. It's just, it is what it is. All right, you had one big win. You could only pay out a certain amount. You lasted 1 month and lost anything. Oh yeah, these rules are terrible. This is something comparable to like it's called a reverse withdrawal. So it's like you hit withdraw and then you have to wait 12 hours or 24 hours for your withdrawal to process. And there's a giant button that says cancel withdrawal and keep gambling. So yes, all of these things are put in place. These are with a lot of like the more shady operators like this. I don't even need to name them, but the crypto sites. They're the ones that'll have rules like this. And yes, they're all built to keep you gambling. They don't want you to withdraw the money because they want to keep it. What are some things I did to help keep my mind off gambling when I first started my recovery? I kept myself busy. I started reading more, writing more, journaling. I tried meditation, not great at it, but I tried. Hot yoga, jogging, seeing my friends more, playing sports again, making content. I just try to keep myself busy. I'd like to check this one out. So You basically saw one that said that someone who's a gambling streamer was getting paid by the casinos to do it. Yes, I've made a couple of videos about that here on my channel. The truth is, right, like they're incentivized to lie about how much they're betting. They're incentivized to lie about the chances of you winning because they want to create a big spectacle and get people to sign up with their code. And then they get paid a portion of that person's losses forever after they sign up. Gambling streamers and people selling you stuff online are full of crap. That's the truth. Sorry to say. But feel free to drop any more questions, guys. We got about 5 minutes. And if you feel like you're someone who's struggling with gambling, or you feel like you know someone that's struggling with gambling, feel free to share some resources with them. I have a website where I created resource lists based on where you live, ODAATgamblingawareness.com/resources. And on that page, we dive into basically, say you're from Uganda. You hit from Uganda, and it takes you to your national helpline, your national website, and then a bunch of resources that I've created or partnered with. But I hope that it can be helpful. Brett, thanks for the love. Keep watching the videos if they're helping you. I hope that it can continue to resonate and make a difference for whoever watches them. Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate this. You know, getting up every day and making content is a highly repetitive process. And it's something that you can get worn out from. But at the end of the day, right, if it's making a difference, that's enough motivation for me to keep doing it. And so as long as people are getting enjoyment out of it, I'm gonna keep making it. I feel like you need to get revenge for your losses and get your money back. The best revenge would be, since they're a business and they don't actually give a shit about you, the best revenge would be to stop giving them more business. If you stop giving them business, they will go bankrupt. So that would be the best revenge, not trying to win money back in a game that you're supposed to lose. I'm sorry to hear about your loss, Michelle. Unfortunately, gambling addiction has the highest rate of suicide of any addiction, with 1 in 5 gamblers attempting to take their own life during their addiction. It should be a public health crisis, but it's pushed under the rug because the government's making a ton of money out of it. So, very sorry to hear about your loss. I'm going to continue to try to highlight stories just like yours, and I'm sorry to hear about it once again. Something you said earlier about always finding a way to gamble is true. Any tips on what to do in this case? Ed, the 4 things that I talk about. It's finding alternative things to do with your time to keep you busy, limiting your access to money so that you're not tempted to gamble it by having someone manage your bank account, self-excluding from the casinos to make it difficult, not impossible, but difficult to gamble, and going to support group meetings. These 4 things together should give you the best chance, but what you really need to be focusing on is preparing ahead of time for when you do have a temptation. Because then when that temptation arises and you're like, I want to gamble, make it really difficult to give yourself the time to think, is this actually a good decision? Is this actually something that I want to go ahead and do, knowing what's going to happen after? Make it difficult, but again, can never be impossible. Yeah, to come off self-exclusion lists, depending on what state that you're in, it's like literally it's 1 click. It's just like a half-assed measure, to be honest. A lot of the things that are like the responsible gambling things, and I say this knowing that's like could backfire on me for sure, given the work that I do, but it's like half-assed. We want people to gamble responsibly, apparently, but we never define what that is. What the hell is responsible gambling? Because someone will say, "Oh, it's gambling in a controlled manner. It's gambling where you can afford to lose it." Well, those aren't good guidelines. What does that mean? I know that if I am drinking beer, if I blow a .08, I can't drive a car. If I'm gambling, can I lose 5% of my money? Can I lose 20% of my money? Can I lose half my money and be responsible? I don't know, because no one ever told me. And I think that is really causing a problem. I'm going to put my email in the chat. If anyone wants to be on the podcast, shoot me an email with a little bit about your story. Thank you to everyone that's been here today, leaving comments, leaving donations. Thank you again, my friend. No need to drop any money. The number one thing that you can do to support this channel and the growth of this message and helping to spread the truth about gambling addiction is just smashing that subscribe button, liking and sharing the content when it comes up. I want to continue to answer questions that come in, but please just know, or rather, let me backtrack that. The live stream is about to end. I want to continue answering your questions, so I will be live again next week to talk about the very same issues. I hope that you'll be here. To everyone that's been watching, thank you for leaving comments. Thank you for liking, for subscribing, for following. I appreciate all of you. Let's just keep getting better together, one day at a time. And if you have any more questions,